On this episode of the AZ BizLink podcast, I have Jane Cebrynski joining me. Jane happens to be my personal life coach, and I thought it would be great if she could share a little bit more about how she's helping professionals throughout the Valley navigate the obstacles that a lot of us have to go through. So if you're looking to improve your life, either personally or professionally, this is the episode you'll want to tune in for. Jane, thanks so much for being here today.
Lindsay, thank you for having me. It's a 10 moment.
Would you mind maybe sharing a little bit more about what it means to be a sports life coach?
Oh, okay. So a sports life coach is somebody who trains people, professionals who want to become competitively great in their life. And we use the context and language of sports to do that.
I think it's really neat the way that you have your program set up. So in my opinion, and actually I have a lot of friends that have shared that same philosophy, that we thought life coaches were really meant for people that were struggling with things in their life. But what I found was that a lot of us, we're already doing a lot of things really well, but we feel like there's some room for improvement. So utilizing a life coach has helped us to take our personal and professional lives to the next level. So Jane, what are some of your winning strategies that you like to share with other professionals in the local market?
With respect to life coaching?
Yeah.
So I came to life coaching through my own personal challenges and struggles, and I found that it's most of the time, I think we feel like we have to go through life alone. And that's not necessarily the case. And life is constantly changing, and there's always opportunities for us to continue to grow. And so I find that it doesn't matter who you are. My experience has been, regardless of who I've coached, how old they are, where they are, we all have the same stuff, same challenges to go through. And sometimes it's nice to have somebody to support you going through it.
Absolutely. So for those individuals that have never worked with a life coach before, could you maybe walk them through what that process even looks like?
Well, for us, using the language and the context of sports, we call every session working with a client a workout, because it is a workout. You know, you're training to change your life, and that isn't always easy. And we keep very consistent with our rituals and routines in the way we go about each of our workouts. But the goal is to identify what the desired outcomes are, identify the season, meaning the length of time that you're working on this particular desired outcome. So it could be 4 weeks, 6 weeks, it could be a year, it could be ongoing. And then my job is to help get you there.
No, you've certainly been impactful in my personal life. So Jane serves as my personal life coach. And so I thought this would be a great platform to maybe share a little bit more about what she does and how she's impacted not only myself, but a lot of my friends in the community. But more than anything, I just really wanted other individuals and professionals here in the market to maybe consider, the benefits that can bring to them as individuals. So as people are looking to find a life coach, what would you encourage them to look for when identifying who would be the right fit for them?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's a relationship.
Yeah.
So you want to find somebody that you identify with. And there's 3 things that need to happen when change is going to occur. So if you know you want to change something in your life, first you've got to have some hope. And that starts with a relationship. It starts with somebody who maybe you identify with, or you believe, okay, they can help me get there. And then through our coaching process, we're very experiential with the tools that we introduced. So the idea is to give you some new skills that you can then go out and practice. And hopefully that gives you the new thinking that you need to, make the changes in your life that you want to change. But it all really starts with that relationship. And I personally love the methodology of sports. It really resonated with me. And you don't have to be an athlete in order to understand it. But we find that visually, a lot of people really get the concept of sports. And I grew up in a very athletic household. I consider myself athletic. I raised 3 boys. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I have found that a lot of my clients really can connect with that.
I agree. So I grew up playing sports, and so for me, that was something to easily align with. So there are some great tools that you've taught me along the way. One of my favorites being the stat tool. Would you maybe share a little bit more about what the stat tool even is?
Sure. In sports, stats are facts. They're numbers. They don't lie. So how many points scored, how many shots taken, how many missed goals. And you can walk around saying, I'm doing really great. And then we can look at the stats and go, maybe, maybe not. And so we use stats on a range from 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being high, to help identify how are we truly living our lives, both professionally and personally. I can tell you my life is amazing, and then when I stat it up, it's like, oh, maybe it's not as great as I think it is, and I really want to improve that. So, for example, Lindsay, can you give me a 10 moment?
A 10 moment for me this morning was having a coffee meeting with one of my most favorite nonprofits here in town.
Yay.
Ordering my most favorite cup of coffee at one of my favorite coffee shops.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
High five that. So tell me about the feeling around that. Like, what makes that a 10 moment for you?
The feeling behind that would be I love easing into my morning. I have some rituals and routines and best practices. I know I'm setting myself up for success if I get that caffeine fix first thing in the morning. And then having the ability to surround myself with like-minded individuals that I can either help them, either personally or professionally. And the other great thing is that I wasn't just meeting with one individual. We were able to bring in several individuals for that conversation. So to me, that was a winning strategy. And then I was able to go on with the rest of my day, feeling fully energized and excited about what was to come next.
So that's the key. That's what we want to anchor in, right? Is that feeling. And whether it's professionally or personally or philanthropically, we coach people in those 3 ways. And the 10 moment, if we don't create more 10 moments, we're not really living a 10 life. So we say it's got to be at least an 8 to be great. And we know that in any given day, it's not going to be all 10 moments. And just like in sports, there's going to be things you want to do that you don't really want to do, but you need to in order to achieve optimum performance. So those would be things like that might fall in a 1, 2, or 3 range if you were to stat it up. And we call that cardio. So cardio, not in the literal sense, unless you really hate to do cardio, then it is. But cardio is anything you don't want to do that you need to do that's going to get you to a 10. So one of my favorite things last season during football, I happen to be a huge football fan, I discovered that Odell Beckham Jr. hates drinking water. And he knew that in order to improve his performance, he did a few different things, but adding water into his routine was super important to him. And in my mind, I immediately went, drinking water for him is cardio, something he doesn't really want to do, but he knows he needs to do it. So from a time management standpoint, we recommend you do a little cardio in the morning and a little cardio in the afternoon, because you can imagine if your entire day was full of cardio, what would happen?
I think you'd burn out.
For sure. And that's true whether it's professional or personal, right? If you look at your whole life and it just feels like cardio, it's going to take its toll on you. So we recommend a little bit in the morning, a little bit in the afternoon, because the idea behind cardio, don't spend any energy on it. And that means negative thought energy as well. When we sit there and say how much we hate doing something, we're expending energy, and that's taking away from the places where we need our energy for optimum performance.
I think a lot of us, we feel obligated to do so many things. A lot of my girlfriends and I, we talk a lot about time and energy management and just feeling like we're being pulled a million different directions, and how some of us struggle with just being present and in the moment. So though we know everything is really important, trying to figure out ways and strategies in order to prioritize that is essential to our future success. And so one thing that I've absolutely loved implementing was trying to find winning strategies for, setting up meetings. We all get requests from individuals that want to meet with us. And it's not that we don't have any desire to do that. I've always been of the philosophy, I want to meet with everybody if I can, but there simply just aren't enough hours in the day. So I would stat some of those meetings up as 5, 6, 7. They weren't in that 8 to 10 range for me. But I knew if I could also invite somebody else I was planning to meet with that was a 9 or 10, that it was really important, that was a high priority, and make that group introduction, that was a winning strategy. So I've shared that tool with a couple different people,
Love.
and now it's been really helpful for them to kind of prioritize, and they're not leaving anybody out.
Right.
They're just trying to find a way to make it work for them.
Well, so the key is it's a range, right? Scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being high. If something that you are doing within your day or within your personal life is at a 5, 6, or 7, then the question is really simple. How do I raise that stat? And again, it's about taking control of our life in a way that feels good to us. And so sometimes it can be a little adjustment, like inviting somebody else to the party, so to speak. And I'm constantly encouraging and challenging everyone to increase their stats, right? Because oftentimes we don't think we have that ability. We just got to trudge through it. And that's not actually true. And I think you're a living example of that.
Thank you. Yeah. So other strategies that have worked for me, even if I have a meeting that's a 7, maybe 8, if I'm trying to elevate it, I will go to my favorite coffee shops or order one of my favorite glasses or cups of coffee or whatever. Those have been strategies that have worked for me. I know everybody's different and they prioritize things in a different way. But once I started kind of flipping that switch in my own internal head, that was really impactful.
Can I just add to that? Because what I think is super important there, what you said, is you became very intentional.
You bet.
So the first key is to become aware. What is my stat on that? So we encourage from a time management standpoint. And again, this is something that everybody can take away today and start to implement. And it's a matter of identifying, okay, what's my stat on my entire day? And can I elevate it? And now, not only have you become aware about how you're spending your time and your energy and your emotions, but now you can become very intentional about changing it and elevating it. And the more you practice it, the easier it becomes. It just becomes like a habit.
Something else that really showed up for me was when we were talking about events or situations in which we couldn't get it in that 8 to 10 range, and how sometimes we would still go, but the other people that we were there with would definitely sense that this wasn't a 10 moment for us. So the example I love to give is my family regularly does Family Taco Tuesday, which is one of my most favorite things to do. But there are weeks in which there's just a lot going on and we're trying to juggle a lot. And so my commitment that I've done is if I can't show up as the best version of myself, and if I don't think I can show up and give it an 8 to 10, that I just won't go, which was really hard for me to get to that point, but I won't go anymore because my family deserves to see the best version of myself. So that was a big learning experience for me, because I figured, it's my family. They'll take me in any form or fashion. They don't care. They just want to spend quality time, which is true, but they deserve to get the best as well.
Well, I think that I love that you said that. And of course, your family is going to accept you just as you are. But what statting everything up, it's a matter of, if we've got to change and show up. But the really cool part about it is it also gives you permission to say no and to really decide for yourself how you want to be spending your time and your energy. And I know that one of the biggest things I hear is people struggle to say no. And the truth is that if somebody's inviting you to do something, let's say a friend invites you to sit on the board of a charitable organization, that's a 10 for them. They're going to come to it with all of their energy and all of their passion. And if you can't show up and be a part of that team, don't they deserve everyone on their team to be 10s? And so it really becomes a way that gives you permission to say no, but it's really honoring them. It's really honoring them. And so we think about saying no as being this awful, horrible thing, but it really honors them.
I agree. Yes. So thank you so much. And hopefully our listeners will look to implement that little tool within their lives.
Stat it up.
Stat it up for sure. When it comes to time and energy management, I know that's one thing that, even at the events that I host for AZ BizLink, talking to other professionals here in the local market, there just are not enough hours in any Wednesday to get everything done that we need to. So time and energy management is crucial. Would you mind maybe just sharing some winning strategies that you've learned or experienced?
Well, I think what's really important is that I'm only the expert in my life. I'm not the expert in anyone else's life. So sure, I can share winning strategies that work for me, but when I'm coaching, it's not about me. It's about the tools and the strategies that work best for you. So I go back to my tools, right? From a time and energy management standpoint, first of all, we look at the stats. What are my stats on all of these things? When it is a low stat, that is not cardio. In other words, it's just a low stat. That is just something I don't want to do. Then the question becomes, can I delegate it or delete it? Now, the trick is, for a lot of people, this is new muscles. So if you're not in the habit of believing or thinking you can delegate, or if you're not in the habit of setting boundaries and being able to say no for yourself, then it's new muscles that you have to train and you have to practice. And if I can use a couple examples from us, a couple of things. I mean, one is I loved when you practiced saying, you know what, I need 15 more minutes in order to manage my schedule a little bit more efficiently, right? You needed to shave off some time, or you needed to feel the pain of what it was like to be stressed out all the time.
Right. No, I always felt like I was rushing from one meeting to another, and my schedule was super compact, and I was trying to do probably one too many things all the time. And so as we were talking through strategies, I was like, gosh, if I just had an extra 10 minutes between each meeting, that would allow myself to clear my head and then go into the next meeting more prepared and feel more present. Because consequently, what was happening beforehand was I was running from one thing to another, thinking about what happened in the last meeting and where I was supposed to be next. Yeah. That when I was actually sitting in front of a certain individual, that I didn't feel like I was totally there. I was always kind of thinking about all this other stuff that was going on.
So the strategy for you was to do what?
Adding a couple minutes on the front and back end of my meetings to set me up for success. So I wasn't rushing.
Yeah. So the key behind that, right, is when your time gets stressed like that, that's energy management. So most people think of energy management only in the physical sense, but there's physical energy, there's mental energy, and you talked about that, like how am I showing up? There's social energy, how are we interacting with others? There is spiritual energy, which doesn't necessarily mean religion, but it's core values and purpose. And then there is emotional energy, and emotional energy is the big bus that drives everything. And what we know is that in order to perform optimally, high performance people know that you need to engage all five. And sometimes you're going to have situations where you've got to put more mental energy into a project or something like that. It's not the intensity of the energy consumed, it's the duration. And again, if you are in one particular place where, like, let's say your physical energy is getting drained, then it's going to impact everything else. And you are experiencing that.
Yeah. I love the phrase that you say, make sure you apply the oxygen mask to yourself first. Obviously, we hear that
so old.
Every time we get on the airplane, we hear that. But gosh, just applying that to our daily lives, like I know I would get so busy, and I'm a giver, and I've always kind of put other people before myself. And so that burnout was happening, and I've seen that for a lot of my friends that's happened. So by making sure that I'm taking care of myself, that's not a selfish act.
Right.
If anything, it's actually more beneficial to everybody involved in my life if I take care of myself first, and then I can show up and be the best version of myself for everybody else.
Well, and it's the power of team, right? So if an athlete didn't take care of himself in the way that he knew he needed to in order to perform optimally, then he wouldn't serve the team well. And in the same way, we don't serve our families well. But it's, for some, especially moms, it is such an opposite way of thinking. We tend to think that if we do anything for ourselves, it's incredibly selfish. But it actually not only honors yourself, but it honors the people around you. You show up better. You show up more aware. I love when we did have that workout. I remember it very clearly, where you're like, I need to be more present in these meetings. And you practice it, and you keep practicing it.
Well, and being more present in conversations, I can't believe, I'm sure there were so many great things that I probably missed or overlooked because I wasn't there or like truly engaged in the conversation.
Yeah.
And also follow up was everything. So I think I was doing everything really well.
Sure.
But I feel like now I'm like, man, I'm on it. I feel like everything is, finally firing on all cylinders. So thank you for all your help with that.
It's my pleasure. Keep practicing. Practice.
So one thing I would like to get your input on is at what point in your life or in your career do you think having a life coach would be beneficial?
Oh, I think that's a great question. Well, I can tell you that my youngest client is 18, and this was somebody who wanted to be competitively great, finishing their senior year really strong, and get some new skills and strategies that they could take into college. So really, it can begin as young as you want to work towards something. And then I have coached people as old, who are in retirement years, who are just looking to change a little bit of things in their life and find more joy. And so there's really a wide range. Most of my clients tend to be professionals that want to become competitively great somewhere in their life. And again, like you said, you think you're doing things well, and that's true. We are, but there's always opportunities for us to continue to grow. And I hate to use the cliche, but it does make a difference about how great athletes still love to be coached, and so do great individuals. And it's really quite true.
I feel like a lot of times when I bring up the concept of having a life coach, people are like, oh, that's just like counseling. Would you mind maybe sharing a little bit more about what the difference is between coaching and counseling?
I hear that a lot, of course. And, counseling, which I've been through and I highly recommend, counseling really works from today backwards, helping you to develop skills and tools to understand previous experiences. Now, we use a little bit, one of the things that we say is watch your film. Just like in sports, athletes are watching film from the previous game. They don't go back to every single game. They just go back to the previous game. Let me take a look at my performance. What do I need to do differently? How can I improve? So we watch our film and we go back to see what strategies worked for us and what things we could change. But the whole idea about coaching is from today forward. So how do you take that information and how do you move forward?
Yeah. And for me, I was always thinking, oh gosh, I don't want to sign up for a counseling thing. Like nothing's really that wrong. So it's been really funny. The more I'm sharing and the more that I'm open about, having a life coach, the conversations that do come up. And the other thing I'm really surprised by is how many people actually do have life coaches. I felt like I was the only one. So when I started volunteering that information, people were like, oh yeah, I've had a life coach for years.
You thought you were so hip.
Yeah. Which I think is really funny. So what's some other information that you think, people either personally or professionally would find value in knowing?
Well, I think, and what I love about the fact that you do tell everybody, you almost embarrass me. I'm like, oh my gosh, she tells everybody.
I'm very transparent. I have nothing to hide.
But I think that speaks volumes to where we are as a society today. It's, not something you have to keep a secret. And really, people are beginning to embrace the fact that, hello, all your high achievers have coaches. People who are out there, businesses and organizations, CEOs that are performing at a really high level have coaches. In fact, I just got a quote yesterday that the CEO from Google said the best advice I ever got was get a coach. And so it's not something that needs to be looked down upon and for people to be embarrassed. It's almost something to be proud of. Like everybody wants to get coached these days. And I think there's nothing wrong. Number one, you have to be coachable. You have to want to make some changes in your life. You have to be willing to do the work. And I think that's what I love so much about our style of coaching is it's very experiential and interactive. You do all the heavy lifting. I might introduce some tools. I might challenge your thinking. I might offer you some new ways to think about it. But at the end of the day, you decide what works best in your life, and then you go out and practice. And the other funny thing is that, some people think, okay, I've arrived. Like I've worked with a coach for a couple of weeks and I'm good to go. Well, life is constantly changing and life is constantly coming at us. And we invest so much time and resources and money in other aspects of our life, but not as much in the game of life. And that's the biggest game we're actually playing.
And I must share the money that I spend or invest in myself, especially with working with you. After I walk away from those sessions, I'm like, gosh, that was some of the best stinking money I spent all month long. So it is very fulfilling and it makes it feel worthwhile for sure.
Well, I invested in coaching in probably one of the worst times. I had left a job. I was recently divorced. So by most people's standards, I had no business spending the money, but it was super important to me because I at the time felt very lost and very alone in my life, and I needed a coach. I need somebody who was going to support me through the process and somebody who believed in me when I didn't really believe in myself so much. So a lot of people are like, no, I can't afford it right now. I can't afford it. The question is, can you afford not to?
Oh, I love that. So I guess my question to follow up with that would be, how would someone know that they're ready to actually work with a life coach?
Ooh. Oh, that's such a good question because I think the readiness comes at you. You're like, I've been wanting to make a change in my life, or I want to elevate my life to the next level, and I'm just not getting there maybe, or it's just not where you want to be. And it's really just a kind of, people have to be ready for it. So I meet everyone where they're at in their life. And some people just aren't ready for it. And the truth is it's hard. Change is hard. Studies show that 9 out of 10 people would rather die than change. And we've all experienced it, right? Change is uncomfortable. Change is hard. Being honest with ourselves is really difficult. And so some people may have resistance. And then there's people like me that are like, please, I need help. Help me, please.
As I've talked to other people here in town about their coaching and working with other individuals, I think for a lot of them it showed up as, they were reading books and listening to other podcasts and blogs, and they were just ready to sit down with a real life person because in today's society it's so easy to get information. It's readily available, but I think what I personally struggled with was, how does that relate to me? I can get these great tools, but I don't know how to actually implement them. So that's what was really beneficial in my eyes. So if somebody's on the verge, if you're already reading the books and listening to the podcasts and the blogs, I would, encourage you to go and meet with one individual just to get a sense of it.
So I think, and I love where we are as a society because it just shows how important personal and professional development has become. And I read books too, and I listen to podcasts all the time. And I found that while they're very, very motivating, nobody's holding me accountable. Nobody is making me do the work. I can sit and listen to it and think, oh, that is amazing. I'm going to work on that. And then just like most things, we start to lose interest, or we lose the momentum, or we lose the desire. More importantly, when the change starts to happen, that's when most people want to quit because that's when it feels the worst. But you have to push through that sometimes. And so having a real person, having a life coach help you get through it, I think is super critical.
Yes, having somebody to hold you accountable, I think, is probably one of the most beneficial factors. Something else I'd like to share too. So Jane, you actually kicked off our 2019 leadership series for AZ BizLink. So
Thank you for that.
Of course, I couldn't think of anybody better. So Jane kicked off the conversation around creating our vision for the year. Hard to believe that we're more than halfway through the year already.
Yep.
But in those conversations that we host, we're always talking about leadership development. So if you haven't been to one of our events, but you're looking to potentially work with a life coach or somebody that could help in a consulting space, I would encourage you just to check out our website and some of our other events because it's only $50 to attend, which is a lot cheaper than hiring a life coach. But you almost get a life coach for the day and you learn some of those new tools and best practices. So anybody that enjoyed this conversation, I feel like would find value in that.
Well, I thank you for letting me be here and share something that I'm super passionate about.
Absolutely. One other thing that I would love to touch on before we wrap up today is talking about how corporations and companies are now investing in their people and how some employers here in town will actually cover the expense of having a life coach. Would you mind maybe sharing some more on your experience with that?
Sure. From a personal standpoint, it's something I'm very passionate about because having been an employee within an organization going through a really difficult time, I really wish I would have had the tools and the strategies at that time that would have helped me be a better employee, to show up as a 10. And while companies are beginning, companies have been investing in employees for a long time, we're seeing a lot of features and benefits. But what I'd love to see is a lot more availability of coaches to employees, because we know that billions and billions of dollars are lost every year to employee productivity. And it's a variety of reasons, but a lot of those are because of emotional reasons, things that are happening. And we know for sure that home comes to work and work goes home. And so I would love to see more companies investing in a coach. And certainly it is becoming, more popular.
Yeah, I love that we talked about this a little bit further. So a lot of the corporations that I've worked with are always trying to think of different innovative ways to improve their employee benefit.
Yeah.
And so certainly that's been a new trend that we've been seeing here in the Valley. So if people want to learn more about Jane Cebrynski or Patterson Sports Ventures, where could they find you?
Well, we do have a website, www.pattersonsportsventures, and I can also be emailed at jane@pattersonsportsventures.com.
Awesome. Well, Jane, you've certainly made this podcast a 10 moment for me.
Thank you. High five.
Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Lindsay. Congratulations on all your success, too. Keep moving forward with the 10 life.
Thank you.